Hey everyone, and welcome to Sky Notes. This week we're diving into Mars's move into Libra, what it kicks up, what it challenges, and how to work with it. Plus, we'll break down the full moon and the story the lunation chart is telling us. Let's get into it. Good day, Miss Lillian. How are you?
I'm good, Tracy. How are you doing?
I'm good. Welcome to Sky Notes, everyone. We are earlier in the week because we can't be live this week, but we have some wild astrology, great astrology, scary astrology happening very soon. What do you think, Lillian? Has anything become less intense since the beginning of the summer?
You know, it's so funny that you say that because it is more and more intense. And I remember going through cancer treatment and really feeling blessed to have the sense of, not blessed, but like relieved to have the sense to just follow one thing after another thing. So I didn't get involved in any treatment before it came or anything. And I think it's something I'm using now because things are so kablooey and so insane that you can only do one thing at a time, whatever's in front of you.
That's very fair. It does feel a little bit never ending with the intensity of everything. And I feel like if you follow astrology on any of social media, to our audience, Threads has some great quality stuff if you actually just use astrology and search it. But there seems to be quite a theme of everybody just really feeling like we're not energetically getting a break. And I mean, that's apart from, it doesn't help that the news is crazy and everything in the world is, not easing up. But energetically, we're just not getting a chance to catch our breath or, get a break.
Yeah. Relieve ourselves from that tension. We were just talking about the benefits of bad technology include screaming at your computer when it's not working. And I was saying to Tracy that I count those as freebies. I don't like yelling at people. I don't want to be that kind of person. But boy, if I need to yell at my computer, here goes.
Well, and I feel terrible that, not terrible, that's not the wrong way to put it, but I really underestimated this Mercury retrograde 1,000%. I thought, once the sun went into Leo, but the amount of energy coming out of those outer planets that are all in aspect to each other, I feel like it's almost too much for us as humans and for our little technology to manage. So Mercury being retrograde is not helping.
It's interesting because, I have a chart where everything's connected. And I know we're going to get to more of that vibe with the full moon. But what I wanted to share is it is too much for any one human being. And I find often I have to ground myself and just be relieved that that energy that shows up also subsides. And even if it takes quite a while, there are those intervening steps you can take to expel some of the intensity along the way. So.
Yeah, for sure. And I think sometimes when you see, because the outer planets are all in a nice aspect, and for anybody who, has a lot of air or fire in the early signs of the early degrees in their chart, are getting these really nice aspects.
Right.
And that's fine. That means there's a lot of energy flowing your way, but it's likely too much, especially, in the case where your personal planets aren't talking to those outer planets in a natal chart, right. It would be even more too much.
Yeah.
And so what ends up happening, even though it's a trine and sextiles, you just need a nap because you just can't process the amount of energy. And so it's frustrating because I think, for some people, it feels like they might be missing opportunities or they're giving things away, or I can't stress enough how important it is for people to ground themselves right now. Because the more earth connection you can make I'm not like, this is not woo-woo crap. I am telling you, it's going to keep you sane.
Yeah.
I think that's part of the thing too.
Yeah, the pieces of like from the cliche touch grass to the, go out and garden, hang out with animals. That's my preference, right? Things that move at a slower pace than electricity. Even our homes, we have an electric pulse that is quite a bit slower than the electric pulse that powers the stuff in our house. And I can go find the source on that. But the point of it is we're already in general in these type of environments that are modern and change the environment and are full of lights and different technologies are already exacerbating the kind of things that would lead to burnout. And so getting away just from that is helpful, and it doesn't come from a judgmental place or there are rules around it place. Just relieve yourself of that tension. I would say self-pleasure is a great way to do it since Mars is often involved. So whether that's finishing some projects that were really passionate for you or the usual subject for self-pleasure, me. Ooh. And then also I think about Andy's great advice about Mars, like get out there and rock 'em, sock 'em. Go do a DIY project that you can kind of mess up on and get it back together, or go look at the things that are broken and see if you can repair them. And I know that sounds counterintuitive, but what I often find with emotions, the difficulty in processing them is doing little things enough so that your emotions can kind of eke out a bit and give you some relief. And I think that comes from doing rather than thinking or feeling or any of those things.
Yeah. Yep. And I just want to go back a little bit when you were talking about the grounding things. Some of the fastest ways to get grounded is to eat grounding things. So anything that grows like a root, anything that's a root is grounding. And a really simple and quick way to get into your body and get grounded. Beer apparently is one of the most grounding things that you can put in your body. I'm not a beer fan myself, but I can make it happen if I need it. There's also a point right in the middle of the bottom of your foot, right underneath the ball of your foot, right in the center, which is like one of the key source points in Chinese medicine, traditional Chinese medicine. And if you put pressure on that point, do each foot and just breathe. And if you can find the Om sound, even better. But that's a really fast way to bring the energy down. And because what happens when we have so much fire and air is all the energy is in our head, right? Like that's all very head and upper, right?
Yeah.
And so you see everybody's walking around like this. I can't believe how this I have been in the past few weeks. Yeah. And so I'm lucky. I have tuning forks. I've got lots of things. I actually love to put my singing bowls on the floor, and it's a wood floor, and hit them and then feel the vibration through my feet. That's fast, down and dirty, quick way to get grounded. Yeah. It's really powerful. So
and also for folks who ground into water or whatever, and forgive it, I'm totally into the woo, but say you feel better after a bath. I know that's not your gig, but for me, washing other people out of my hair or off my body is a really helpful way for me to just call myself back to myself. And that's usually what I'm doing when I'm trying to ground, is I'm disambiguating the energy of other people from my energy. So I say that a lot. I'm calling myself back to myself. And then guess what? I'm here. Oof, what a relief. And then I can feel my feet on the ground. Sometimes it's as simple as I sit with my, I got the balls of my feet up and my heels are in the air. And if I don't think about it, that's where they'll stay. So I always kind of ask my heels to land on the ground, and then I just imagine them a few inches under the ground. But that's very pro woo. And I'm saying that because once, guys, I was on mushrooms. And I was in the woo way. I was with a beautiful person and we had a beautiful time. And they said, go ahead and send your roots into the earth. And they didn't go in the earth. And I was so freaked out. We were right next to the ocean and they went in the ocean and they went deep. And I was really nervous about that for a really long time. Why weren't they going into the earth? And I think I root in water is why. So some people can use water to ground.
There is earth underneath the water. So, you could argue.
You raise a really good point.
And just, you don't have to do that in a bathtub, the
No.
cleansing. I do it in the shower every time I shower. I really try to consciously now. When I realized, when you have water on the ascendant or a lot of water in your chart or a lot of connections to the North Node, which brings a lot of energy to you, any of those things can mean that you empathically pick up other people's garbage. And so when I take a shower, there's a moment of just washing everybody else's crap down the drain, back into the earth to be purified. And like, ever since I started doing that consciously, I'm telling you, it boosts your energy when you're not carrying everybody else's crap around. I'm telling you.
I love to bounce off of what you say. And so two things hit me immediately. One was hair. That wash that man right out of your hair is no joke. Hair is like the easiest thing for people to put energy in, it feels like. And then the other one is, boy, if you think showering helps, this is not about being clean, but pooping. I usually let all my shit go if I have to, you know what I'm saying? And really, really put a name on it. Like, oh, that was so hard. Oh, what a relief.
Well, and it's less about woo and more about just being more conscious about all the processes that we have and why we have them,
Exactly.
not running on autopilot is the word I'm looking for. For sure. And understanding sort of how energy works can be super helpful, but it's not everybody's bag. So
Yeah.
there's that too.
Yeah.
So we were specifically going to talk today about Mars going into Libra because that is happening this week. I have it right in front of me. This is happening on August 6th, which is a Wednesday, and it's going to be at 5:23. 5:23
in real life.
5:23 p.m. on Wednesday, August 6th. That's Mountain. It's going to be 7:23 p.m. on the East Coast, and the rest. You guys are smart. You can figure it out. But yeah, so Mars is the last thing we had in Earth, and it was in Virgo, so it wasn't super helpful. But at least it was a planet in Earth.
I don't know. I mean, I can't tell yet. I'm gonna have to go find my other Mars and Virgo sisters and brothers, of course, and find out how it was for them, because recently I realized that Mars and Virgo is my favorite time. When it comes back, I feel like I have so much more clarity and the ability to strategize and so much more patience with process. Like I want to hear the third step and the 10th step, and that's not going to freak me out. But it does overload me, and I can understand where it's not necessarily pleasant. And also I forget that Mars will piss you off, and and it is not gentle, it is not discreet, you will find out everything you don't like when Mars is in Virgo. I say this as a Mars in Virgo. It may not be that experience for everyone. But because of that, I feel this piece of quality and depth of examination that I'm beginning to realize is part of what I would give to Libra. So I'm excited to talk about Mars and Libra, because Libra looks so good because all the pieces are in place. And Virgo, Mars and Virgo put them there. Do you know what I'm saying? There's a big, set of work detail that has to be executed on, that by the time I think we get to Libra, Mars and Libra, we're not going to have to dig so deep for that. So that's kind of the way that I'm thinking of it. It's so much Earth that, it's going to pop into Mars and Libra.
So I have a question. Remind me, is Mars in Virgo your only Earth planet?
No, because it's in that stellium with Pluto and Uranus, right? So those are outers.
Personal planet. So the only reason I ask is that was
Yeah.
what you just described about when Mars goes into Virgo is a really beautiful example of what happens when you get to access. So that small piece of yourself and that like lack of earth in your chart and personal planets, you really get to tap into it when Mars
Yes.
goes into that sign. That's beautiful. That's why tracking transits can be so powerful, right? Is
Yes.
that you every 2 years get this opportunity to reconnect with that earth part of your chart.
Exactly.
I love
Exactly. Yeah.
Now, when we're talking about a transit to the collective,
General. Yeah.
Mars in Virgo it doesn't have the weight that Virgo
Got
as
it.
an earth
It's
sign
good.
doesn't have a weight to
You're right.
anchor people
Yeah.
in a way that's strong enough to counteract the amount of fire and air that we have going on right now because of those outer planets. Do you know
Interesting.
what I'm saying?
I do, and yet, and I acknowledge it, and then I wonder if it's two different paths. There are the people who are hot to destroy everything, and then there are the people who are quietly kind of squirreling stuff away. But to your point, yeah, it's like a cousin to Mars and Capricorn. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, and it's not, especially if you don't have any Virgo placements in your chart, that's not easy energy to navigate Mars in Virgo. The other planets in Virgo is a bit gentler. Mars in Virgo is like going to nitpick the nagging, tidbits as hard as it can.
Oh, yeah, you don't have to tell me.
And you see it. I find whenever we have Mars in Virgo collectively, people just get nitpickier and scrappier, and we fight over small things instead of big things, And
Yeah.
so as a collective, and so it just, I find that if there isn't something to anchor the energy, then Mars
That's
and Virgo
good.
just runs rampant with people, annoying each other.
Yes, and I certainly have seen that.
And when everybody's overstimulated, it's not helpful.
Right.
Or, it's potentially not helpful. But yeah, so.
But let me pause for just a second to talk about what was under what I was saying, which is we're talking about really difficult transits, difficult stuff. We're not removing the gravitas around the very real pain in the world and the very real conflicts. But one of the benefits of astrology is leveraging that energy to do things. And because we are leveraging or being aware or digesting differently, we can maximize what it is that we get from these transits, whether it's inner peace and calm, revisions to a project that will improve it, or better unity. And that is a tough stance because it means, for me, I got to keep my big girl pants on and find a zipper for my lip when it's appropriate. But that is the benefit of astrology, is that there's a way to navigate that.
Yeah. Well, and it's, as you were describing that, like energetically, I was just sort of seeing, talking about what's going on in the world right now. And it's like the energy is so big. And that Mars and Virgo just seemed like people running around inconsequentially, like picking the most least productive thing to nitpick.
Wow.
Like when you watch what's going on in the news and dialogue going
The
on
collective,
social
that's
media.
fair. That's fair.
know.
I don't know. I got to tell you. So, and I'm saying this, I really love what you're saying too. I just want to add this to the flow. I just finished listening to a podcast of friends of that poet who passed away, Andrea, I can't remember her last name. And her poetry was amazing, like very much about the grief and loss. And they're on this podcast, and all of the ads are coming in right when they're about to say something that's really going to, tear at the heartstrings. So I was like, once again, baffled by like social media and money. Like they didn't need to monetize this. They could have put this somewhere else. You know what I mean? To honor that. And it's not a gripe. It's just how weird social media was. Because at the same time, here are three people, one of whom laid down with that poet in bed while she was passing. And then, they were passing. And like, has that full weight of like, it's been 3 days. So I'm in the full series, Demeter, like everything's done, but why are you guys still moving kind of thing. She's just not mad about it yet. And then the rest are like, like beautiful little bubbles of grief just popping around this other person. Like I felt so honored and so relieved because we haven't mourned COVID. We haven't mourned all the weird shit going on. We're not like, there's nothing that's like, allowing things to digest in a proper way.
Yeah.
So that was my experience, right? Before I get on here. And maybe again, it's because I knew that would ground me. You know what I mean? But when you talk about the collective, why is there a new ballroom going up somewhere? What's happening there? Like all of the things that are going on are like at this point, batshit crazy, like absolutely batshit crazy. And I'll say it's for whoever, whatever side of the who's what's this, but I do think it's a vibe. We're trying to figure out a lot of stuff and trying to figure out where to put it.
That ballroom is so Neptune and Saturn in the delusion of Neptune and the grandiosity of Aries, because Neptune is in Aries, and the need Saturn to materialize that freaking delusion is like it's poster for that particular time in astrology, for sure.
Yeah, it's wild.
Absolutely wild. Yeah, for sure. Well, and so let's talk about, I always look to social media to sort of, because it does
it's so helpful,
right?
Yeah.
With especially if you like to go and look at the fighty kind of stuff on social media, you can really see what's happening with the aggressive planets and in the tone in which people are communicating on social media, for sure, and the things that they decide to be upset about. And so, with Mars shifting into Libra, well, that's a very different feeling from Virgo in a lot of ways. In that,
yes,
Mars in Virgo is just concerned with the details and getting it right. The actions that I take need to be perfect, and I need to get it right, and I need to make sure I have all the details in order, and I'll beat the shit out of you if you get out of the way of my getting that done.
I love how you put that.
So now it's going into Libra, and this is the sign of Libra. It's not sinology. I'm not trying to put this on the Libra suns in the world. I just please don't take it personally.
Just the sign.
Libra is the Mars in Libra to me is the salesman. Because the Mars is I'm gonna achieve this, I'm gonna sell it, I'm gonna make the money, and Libra's like, I'm gonna charm you while I do it.
Yes.
And it's there's such a salesy energy about Mars and Libra. And so it's almost like, okay, so we've been fighting over the niggly bits. Now we're going to get the hard sell on something.
Yeah.
Like somebody is going to try to hard sell us on some piece of bullshit.
That's a good insight.
Been developing in the wings. That's how I see Mars and Libra. And the passive aggressive crap that comes with potentially can come with Mars and Libra collectively.
Yes.
And the sideways, we're going to see a lot of sideways insults / compliments. Like that's all so Mars and Libra.
Yeah. And a lot of it's fun for people. I saw one thing on social media, to your point, where this guy got online and said, hey guys, me and my wife are going to go for like a 4-day or something amount of time vacation in Las Vegas. And then she walks right up to me and says she's on her period. Should I send her with somebody else? Or should I acknowledge that like I'm going to go waste my time with this bleeding woman? And then I went to look at his post, and like he's trying to drown out all this stuff by saying, you guys can't take a joke. Here she is. She thinks it's funny. We do this all the time. But to your point, there are people who do that all the time, who live in that negative realm where they're just going to pick at you, and that's fun for them. I don't know if it's because they can't feel or it's to shock them so they can't feel. But just like neurologically, everyone jumps when there's a loud noise. Like they've recorded it, like I don't know how many people, but they've kind of recorded the nervous system when somebody drops something. And even, the tough guys who are like, y'all are a bunch of babies, like, jump. So I think the same is true when you're mean to each other, if I understand Gottman correctly. And that means you're getting shit on, like over and over and over again. And some people like to play in that. So, it's not my favorite. Can you tell that's not my favorite from how I'm talking about it?
Well, to be very honest with you, Lillian, you one of your gifts that I will always be dazzled by is the way you can so gently, lyrically, and beautifully describe things you hate, or give people shit, or like it's a skill, man. I think I'm being as gentle and lovely as you, and I always finding out later I was an evil cow, or they thought I was anyways.
Well, I have to find out all the times I'm an evil cow. I'm often an evil cow because I forget, right? Like there's my personal feelings, which are all over the place and have nothing to do with present day. Sorry, they just don't. I'm going to fight you about something my dad said to me when I was 12, my mom said to me when I was 8. It never, ever changes for me. If I'm holding a boundary, then we're talking about a different set of circumstances. That's me all grown up. But the rest of them, it's like those babies inside me are ready to paste somebody evil on your face and call you a name. So since I know that, I totally get that people can be who they are. But I am also able to say it without, like you're saying, involving myself. Like, oh, yeah, I hate that. You know what I mean? Oh, yeah. And also, I react really poorly to that. But I'm grateful that I know that people can be who they are. I'm really grateful for it. And I'm a shit talker. Anyway, this is not about me. Libra. Mars and Libra.
Well, and so I just pulled up the astrology because I don't know why I needed to remind myself where Venus is. So Mars in Libra is going to be ruled by Venus. So you want to know what's happening to the planet that's ruling the planet. Right. She's in Cancer. So that, yeah. I mean, the next couple of months is going to be variable.
Cancer, I love Cancer, and I have my moon in Cancer. I'm not trying to do Signology, but what I'm saying, I love the Cancer sign. It took me forever to acknowledge that I was indirect. You've even called me out on that, or Donna especially is like, what are you doing? But point being, Cancer adds to that sense of passive aggressive because you're just trying to be safe with what you want. You want what you want. And then talk about somebody who's going to mess you up if you get in their way. What is it? Who put that meme up? I'm so cozy and that's the only reason why I'm not beating you up or something. And so Venus is going to come with like wants that are, again, at various ages, right? Or if feeling provoked, that Venus in Cancer might just be another mixer, right? Oh, yeah. No.
Well, so when I go, it's in Cancer. Sorry, I don't have a lot of Cancer in my chart, but what I've observed a lot in the last year, really, is, and I think it's from when Mars was in Cancer. And I was like, oh, wow. Like, so when something's in Cancer, it's being ruled by the moon, and the moon moves fast and changes every 2.5 days and is having transits all the time. And so when something is in Cancer, it's up and down. Like it can't not be, just because of everything that the moon is doing. And so we're in for ups and downs, right? And changes, and things aren't going to be consistent. And there's not a lot of stability with Mars and Libra being ruled by Venus and Cancer. It will stabilize in a couple of weeks when Venus will go into Leo on August 25th. Mm-hmm. And so, I mean, that's just going to add a little bit of fixity. Yeah. And so that can calm it down a little bit. but yeah, I just feel like whenever the moon is involved, especially with our emotions, we're just going to see a lot of up and down and unpredictability. And what I find, like personally, and I found this with Mars in Cancer, was that my emotions kind of hit me out of nowhere, and I was more reactive than I normally would have been.
Yeah.
And I was very like from one day to the next, it was really like, oh, how do I feel today, to determine what my actions were going to be. I don't think we're going to see any less of that with Mars in Libra and Venus in Cancer.
So interesting.
Yeah. So it's that's where we're at with the Mars in Libra. And if you are somebody who has planets in Aries or Cancer or Capricorn, the conflict might become more personal for you, because Mars is going to square. And that's, out of all of the aspects, that's the one that's most likely to bring conflict. And so just to be aware that there are certain days that maybe don't be with people at all.
Oh, I definitely have drawn in the boundaries really close. And it is specifically because of all of this argumentative stuff, because it's in the air. And so it's opportunistic. And unless you feel really stable with the people you're with already, it may not be the right time. Or if you have a lot of air and fire, it's the perfect time to go exploring and see who's out there and find out what's going on. But the Mars opposition to Saturn is historically sort of an aggressive, not sort of, it is an aggressive, two malefics, standing off to each other. In evolutionary astrology, as I understand it, they are man's law and my law. So it's, collective agreements versus what rules you have for yourself. And if they're in Libra, that means you may not be showing all of your cards even to yourself. And in Aries, that's already I think of that as a crabby, not crabby, an explosively impatient placement, Aries and Saturn. And so I feel like there could be people who want really direct things to happen, and people are being indirect, and so they won't leave up. And there are people who really want to be safe, and they really want to kind of build the right structure for themselves, and they're not going to change what they're doing, and it's an opposition. And so there's just this energy going.
So this is our full moon that's happening on Saturday, August the 9th. You can see up in this corner. It's happening while most of us are sleeping on this place. How about we hide you? There we go. And so here's the moon sitting here right up at the top. So the very first thing that we notice is the sun and the moon really are not making aspects.
Right.
Yeah. Sorry, I had to just confirm that thought. But everything else is having a conversation for the most part. I mean, the moon is quincunx this Venus and Jupiter.
You bring up a really good point. Yeah.
So there's that. But really, it's the bigger part of the story is we have, and we didn't talk about this when we talked about Mars, but as it moves into Libra, the very first thing it's doing, it is opposing these two friends here, which are Saturn and Neptune. And so first of all, this is the first conversation. No, I'm lying. The very first conversation it's going to have is actually this trine to Uranus, because that's at a lower degree. And then right away, it's opposing this Saturn and Neptune. And then it's trining Pluto. And it is sextiling Mercury. And so this is, what is this, Lillian? What is it called?
The kite?
This configuration. Right, kite. Thank you.
Yes.
Thanks for that.
Yeah.
So I'm going to take this off. You've seen what this looks like. This is like, so you see there's absolutely nothing in Earth except for the south node. Everything is in fire and air, and then a little bit of water. So, yeah.
Oh, I can see a little glimmer of the cursor. So interesting.
You never know. You never know how this stuff gets shared and what it picks up and what it doesn't pick up.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, so that's the map of the sky uh, at the time of the full moon. And I love what you said. It hadn't occurred to me that I didn't see either of the luminaries in that configuration. And I was bringing it up before we met because we want to have Alfie Lavoie on to talk about kites. He looks at kites in a year and how powerful they signify uplift. And so I'm not going to, you should go to Alfie, Alphee, Lavoie, Lavoie, to find out what he says on it. And we'll try to have him on so that you can get that information. But what I've heard is there's a lot of potential for success and liftoff, but there's also like so much connection that when you get disruption, it's really intense. And so the goal of a kite is to have all of the pieces executing at the same quality so that you can prevent any disruption. So it both feeds the people's folk, I have a desire for stability that's not being met right now. And I think a lot of people have that. So it can create that aspirational vibe and give you some glimpses of what you can see in a kite. And then there's the acknowledgement that change is coming that can kind of derail you if you're not ready for some backwinds or crosswinds or the like.
I like that. I love that as an analogy too. I wonder, because I actually had looked at this and not even myself put together that the sun and moon weren't really aspecting anything.
Right.
And so, I mean, one of the ways that you can look at that is the sun and the moon being the most personal, that all of that stuff, that big stuff that's going on around us, although we're taking really personally, isn't actually doing anything personal.
Right.
Nothing
I think
that,
it's
and I mean,
interesting.
unless your personal chart is tied into this lunation.
And even if it is, it might be saying it is time for some realistic self-care. And if you want to look at one of our self-care videos, we can point you to all the options. We're not talking about the same old, same old. That there's a separation or a boundary between the collective and our personal existence. And maybe a little time spent with oneself would be nourishing in this time, in addition to what you're saying.
Well, and it's, God, I'm having way too many thoughts all at the same time.
I
First
love
of all,
it.
the beauty of the Moony in Aquarius is that it, I mean, one of the themes of Moon in Aquarius, wherever we look at it in astrology, there's an ability to detach and create boundaries with that particular combination. And so to me, that's kind of what this is asking, is like, take
Isn't that
that
interesting?
bird's eye view and distance yourself and actually look at it from that, and then the sun in Leo, and then decide how it personally affects
Oh,
you. That
wow.
to me
I
is
love
like
that.
the story of this chart, because we talk about the lunation charts because they're not just a quick transit, right?
Right.
They are a culmination or a combination of all the transits happening at once that will carry through. I mean, there's way bigger patterns of, moon cycles and moon families and all of this. So there's that, which is, this carries this into a bigger picture. But in the shorter vision, these last a couple of weeks, right?
Yeah.
So this might be just a moment, but we're looking at this over some time,
It's
right?
the flavor that will be wafting out. And as you were describing the different conversations that were going to happen right after that lunation, that describes like this element coming into play and not being able to resist the Saturn-Neptune conjunction because it plays a strong role. And it's fascinating how these things go. And I believe they form the basis of monthly transits, right? The full moon or the new moon? I can't remember.
Usually, I mean, I look at both. I mean, to me, the
Yeah.
new moon is you look at the new moon and then the full moon as the kind of the correction almost, or
Oh,
the
okay. Yeah.
adjustment,
Opportunity.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
what you want to move forward with, what you want to move behind, you kind of assess it at that
Yeah.
objective. We can see the full picture with the light at its fullest light. And I mean, even if you remember the chart, the moon is literally sitting at the very top of the chart and the sun at the very bottom here, at least, and
Right.
where I live. So that's a very pure expression of a full moon when it's actually sitting at the very top of the chart, lighting
Right.
up the whole story, you know. It's not
Exactly.
happening underneath, it's
Hmm.
actually the thing that's sitting at the top shining its light. So
Yeah.
that gives it a little bit of a different importance, and makes it so that the things that are going to develop out of this lunation story will be able to see it.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Cool.
That's
Yeah.
cool. That's cool. So yeah. So my plan for this full moon is to, as usual, celebrate the harvests. I felt like in the last month there's been a lot of really hard stuff, but a lot of really stuff to be grateful for. So I like to do that. And what is the other stuff? Man, I've been on a burning kick and I don't think it's going to stop. Burn, burn, burn. It feels like there's this massive shedding going on, right? We're in a lot of disagreement. We're in a lot of conflict. And so there's a lot of stuff that's going to go whether we like it or not, and a lot of stuff that we can take out, whether other people like it or not. And that's a big adjustment. I keep thinking of when I was in the corporate world, those processes for managing change, the shorthand is you say your goal to yourself over and over again, and you can be quite specific about it. And then you look for the milestones to the goal. And this is to continue to create a wave to follow while there is no other wave, while everything else looks to be falling away, while there are real things to complain about. And so managing change is something you can look it up. It's a real common business technique. Folks can look it up, but it feels like a really good time, to think about, you know, the US got bought out, for example, and the new owners are stripping her for parts, just as a for instance. And we don't know when the layoffs for the citizens are going to be complete. Ah!
Speaking of burning things down, there have been a lot of things on social media about Americans complaining about the Canadian fire smoke. And yeah, asking Canadians to get their shit together. I've actually seen, yeah. So there's somebody who,
Did
and
they
I
tell you
had thought,
guys to rake your forest? Because that's a
yeah, right,
popular.
maybe. But my very first thought when I saw that popping up was, well, we're just smudging the negative energy coming out of you, right? Right, and I'm like, okay, but I can't say that because I can't.
It's
But then
so
I
true,
laughed
though.
so hard because I went on
Yeah,
Threads and there's this beautiful First Nations woman who's like, that's exactly what she said. I'm like,
absolutely.
yay, yes, that's what it feels
Yeah,
like. It feels like and I mean, it really, those fires like that are literally a purification, and to make
it
room for new
literally
growth. That's
is.
literally what they're for.
Hmm.
So we're just, yeah, doing some purification up here.
Yeah, we could do a lot of smudging. A
Anyway,
lot of
I
smudging.
laughed really. I was really pleased to see I was not the only one who'd had that thought.
Yeah.
And somebody
Hmm.
who's it's culturally relevant. It was even better.
Exactly.
It's like, yay.
Exactly. That's so wild.
Yeah,
That's so
it's so
wild.
good. Yeah.
But I only bring it out because it's the most obvious, the tussle. Somebody was commenting on the first 100 days of the first time this administration was in place, and he had only pissed off Americans roundly. And this time he has pissed off the world and continues to just piss off the world. So it's a fascinating and terrible growth in influence over time. And I just think about that. Conflict is about making an adjustment to an outcome, right? And I say this with full knowledge that Greg cleared it up that I like to fight. Not me, Sagittarius likes to fight. Come on. And so I think about that adjustment can come with like really hard conflict or really soft conflict, or, I marvel at how simple boundaries create no ruckus whatsoever. And one could live for a long time without necessarily feeling their boundaries going. But my estimation is right now, we've all got little pinchers on. And so figuring out, like, conflict's not bad. It's about the outcome. Clarify your outcome. Clarify your outcome. Be okay with things being unclear. And I guess I'm waiting kind of for Mercury to go direct to see what happened under all of this huge loud stuff. But in general, it feels like our hands are full just with the amount of things that are switching around. Did you hear that your prime minister, Carney, is that his name? Okay.
Yep.
He announced that Canada dropped food for Gaza, onto Gaza. Did you hear about that? They helicoptered food. What a bunch of good guys. Thank you, personally, Tracy, for helping out.
It was a lot of work, and I'm really tired now. Okay, I
Yeah.
can't do anything. I
Wait,
did
wait.
vote for him, though. I totally did.
That's a big deal.
Yeah, yeah, I like him. Well, and so here's the thing. In astrology, back before COVID, right?
Yeah.
As everybody was like, Saturn and Pluto are going to meet in Capricorn, and disaster will ensue. And it's been like, that's the interesting thing about being an astrologer. You need to be able to be objective
Yes.
to do it, especially when we're talking about the outer world and everything that's happening. But everybody kept saying the structures are going to be broken down and rebuilt and blah, blah, blah. And I think as humans that we think everything's an easy fix.
Yeah.
Right. And
Yeah.
it's like, and also I actually don't think any of us realized how broken things were.
Right.
Like, I think we knew they were broken, but how broken?
Right.
Right. And I think that a lot of structures that people assumed, well, we've got our legal system, or we've got this, or we've got, in Canada, well, we've got universal health care, like all of these things. And it's like, and we're really seeing globally, I'm sure, that where the cracks are, and that's the work that Pluto did in Capricorn, and now we get to fix it. But then, you get Saturn coming into Aries, and Saturn and Aries wants somebody to pay.
Yeah.
In a violent
The
way.
vengeance. Yeah.
Yeah. And so that is, and remember, Pluto and Aquarius, wonderful for the social collective and all that, but it's being traditionally ruled by that Saturn and Aries. So that's a tough, like,
That's wild.
we are not as a people going to get off easy. And people need to stop hoping this goes back to some form of normal we thought we had, because that is not, the harder everybody holds on to that idea, the worse this gets. And from my estimation, I don't know, what do you think?
Well, I appreciate this discussion, and I would even take it back to 2001 when we were hearing about the square, the Saturn-Pluto square, and then September 2001 was a particularly intensely aspected day. And then I felt like for 10 years, I had a really hard time talking to clients because they wanted to know when this would be over. And how do you convey, like, there is no over, there is the next part and the next part. And what we lived in was one bubble, and you can have the next bubble can have the same cool qualities. And maybe you had 17 bubbles and you didn't recognize it, but it will never be the same one. And we got to get to the next bubble. And we can't do it by undermining everyone. And that's my 2 cents, is that there's such a predictable outcome. Like when you were saying people wanting to get back to normal, I think about this documentary I watched on post World War II Germany, and how they did reconstruction. And I was a half hour into it, and they were just talking about the vengeance. They'd find people who they thought were collaborators, or women who had been sexually assaulted and then killed them for their disloyalty, and those sort of misdirected fury was everywhere in that culture, along with the bombed buildings and kids not eating and mass confusion. And my sentiment about when things go right, you barely notice it, is a real risk, because when things go wrong, they can go that wrong really easily, and we're already there in the US. So it's a real, I mean, I was having a conversation with somebody about Imagining Argentina. I don't know if you read that book, but it was about I can't remember which regime it was, but they were disappearing people. And they had the mothers who would come to the plaza with pictures of their kids, like they just ride through in these Ford Falcons and pick people up. And the story was about an author and her husband, and how her husband did not stop searching for her. And so when he found her, he found out she had written an entire book in her mind while she was imprisoned. And that was the only way she could get through the experience. And to read that whole thing and know that we're doing that right now to people is absolutely outrageous. And, you know, a lot of folks I know are talking about, are they going to stay in the country? Granted, a lot of folks I know are really irritated by discussions of politics. But to each their own. It just feels like the goal right now should be shifted to, what do you want your future to look like? Or imagine yourself on your deathbed. What would you want to have lived through? And how would you have wanted to conduct yourself? Because I don't know that it's going to be, that objectivity is just going to be available to all of us. I mean, right now I require at least 3 people to nudge myself out of my own expectations.
Fair.
But yeah, I
Yeah, I
think
mean,
there's a lot of work ahead.
yeah, I feel like too with that, the Neptune Saturn conjunction. I mean, Neptune is the planet that makes us attracted to escaping. You know, Venus can do that too, right? Venus just likes things to be
Hmm.
nice and easy, so
Yeah,
we can't let her off the hook. But Neptune is definitely that, you know, delusion and
yeah,
escaping and ignoring. And so I feel like, you know, as you were talking, the Neptune and Saturn is kind of the perfect combination for what we're, especially with ice in the US, right?
that's really
It's
good.
that delusion that you're right of Neptune, you know, and the Saturn, the authoritarian and violence, you know, but it's like,
Yeah,
we hear the stories like it's just so random, and you know, it like they're picking up whoever, and that to me is that combination of the two, right, where it's like there's no
yeah,
real rules, there's no real
yeah,
boundaries around who you're grabbing, who you're not, who you're hurting,
yeah,
you know, and it's just this weird weird energy that is not at all helpful. And anybody
yeah,
who's out there fighting that, like, phew, bravo, that is like
yeah.
it. I can't even believe what's happening down there.
It's
But
pretty
we
amazing.
are, we're being set up like with the Neptune to ignore it, right? There is a planet telling us it's okay, just watch some TV, just, you
It's a
don't have
really
to,
good
just,
point.
if you completely ignore it, it will go away. It will go
Yeah,
away on its own. The other planets are going, no, it won't. You know,
right.
like, wake the F up.
Yeah,
Shit's going down. And
yeah.
the if you pay attention, you can probably help, you know?
If you interrupt it at any point in your day, you know, I bind and rebuke you. You know what I mean? I mean, do what you want, you know, just put a little juice into it.
Yeah.
But, you know, to be fair, I say this with an absolute lack of affinity with folks who want to be vengeful, force their opinions onto others. I just don't get it. It has never worked for me. So I would really need somebody to come sit with me and tell me what the advantage is to doing that. Anyway, I agree with you, and I've thought about that Saturn Neptune conjunction. You know, it's just like that these lenses that open into other lenses, right? And we've got this Saturn like love of system, granted Aries is the sign that's carrying it right now, but that's lovely, robust. I mean, you know, get out there and win. Like that's probably, I don't know, 40%. I'm totally making stuff up. It feels akin to talking about rulers, right? Like real macho guys kind of thing. And then we've got that dizzying oculus of the entire world. I won't even go into the sphere in Vegas because I think I would just like sensorially like pop down. Like if you've ever seen The Good Place, there's this gal Janet, and they pop her into a marble, and you'd be like, "I got Lillian. It's all right. This was too much for her." So like that idea of like seeing the whole universe, is intense, and if you don't see it, you sense it, and it describes the beginning and the end of processes and systems, and that's dizzying. And again, in Aries, like you said, prone to all kinds of like cool acceleration issues. Maybe deceleration is what I'm trying to say.
Well, and so when you're looking at the planets and mixing, the ideas behind the sign and the planet, right? So one of the Saturn words is fear. And
Yeah.
so the sign that it's in can actually really, Saturn can really fear the energy of that sign. So
Oh,
in a
interesting.
natal chart, often, Saturn and Aries can be people who really fear, that fear aggression, or fear
I get it.
conflict,
I get
fear
it.
being
Yeah.
brave and doing things before other people, right?
Hmm.
So that's a strange dynamic because that's sort of also sitting there under the surface. And for anybody who doesn't have the fiery energy to support the like working with the Saturn energy, then
Right.
there's probably a lot of people out there sitting in fear of standing up.
Yes, yes. And I've had a bit of time to reflect, and I think the thing I see about folks who prefer like tribalism and stuff like I'm like tribalism and stuff like that. Um, there's this lovely sense of knowing what you know about the people you know and seeing them, over decades and decades and decades, and seeing how they grow and into their lives and what they're doing. And I always enjoy that. But there is like a heartbeat to that when you're in a more authoritarian and tribal situation that could certainly be enough to create easy escapism just by following the rules.
Yeah, well, and something just jumped into my brain too.
Hmm.
So we have Jupiter right now, and it's one of its favorite signs, and that's great and all. And we see lots of people talking about how wonderful Venus is going to come have a beautiful conjunction with Jupiter next week. Beautiful and lovely. Let's bat our eyelashes. Except for Jupiter's not in charge of anything right now, and
Right.
Jupiter really likes it. It likes to be the biggest thing in the room. Let's
Oh,
say,
yeah.
yeah. And so what I'm noticing, and this is what we saw yesterday, the moon was in Sagittarius. And
Right.
so I find Jupiter, as it's going through the sign of the moon, is taking these opportunities whenever the moon moves into its sign to show itself. And Jupiter wants to
Ah,
teach lessons. It wants,
uh,
it wants to like
I
take
do
over
know.
and be whatever, right?
Be
And
right.
so right, and to be right, yeah. And so to have so we have to pay attention to when the moon is going through Sagittarius and when the moon is going through Pisces, and
That's a
even through
really good
Cancer because
observation.
of the connection, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, we've had Jupiter in Cancer long enough for me to sort of recognize, right, what the little bursts of
Yeah.
Jupiter that we're getting
No,
whenever
it's
the moon
so
is.
helpful, right? Like just to understand, like, okay, here comes another one, and we know what that looks like. It
Yes.
really helps.
It really does.
Yeah.
And so we are, until something shifts into Sag, I don't remember what goes first. It's either Venus, Mercury, or the sun.
Yeah.
We'll get there. And then Jupiter will have a bigger outlet. over a longer cycle. So less of these like bursts of rightness and judicial oversight from the planets
Fewer
will happen
soapboxes.
later in the year. Yeah, it'll calm
Yeah.
down a little bit. Yeah, I hadn't
Yeah.
really even considered what the outcome of Jupiter in a sign it really liked to be in when it didn't have disciples doing work for it.
Right.
Yeah,
Right. When its team shows up, here we go.
yeah. But for right
I
now,
love
it's
that.
desperately expressing itself for them through the moon whenever it
Oh
can.
boy, I certainly feel that. I certainly feel that. And that's actually what I was wondering about when we began talking about the Venus, because when it does meet with the Jupiter, because of the conditions we described, it could be more popping off. It could be more, hey, I mean, Cancer, really good memory, right? The sign of Cancer is associated with good memory. What if you remember every bad thing everyone ever did to you and you just want to talk about it? I mean, what a hard time, right? Like, get your therapist lined up and give them all the names and just say, ask about this person. Me, 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 me. And there's nothing wrong with that. But it is for your process, not for the person.
Well, and to the point about the Cancer energy, the thing that's interesting about this chart that I hadn't thought about was that and I think it's because I've heard from several people that this Mercury retrograde has brought people from the past into their
Yeah,
lives. And so I
interesting.
hadn't really considered the nostalgia of Jupiter and Cancer combined with the
Yes,
Mercury retrograde, that would have been
that's
one of the
good.
outcomes. And it's interesting because I've heard it from so many people that
Yeah.
and so I feel like one of the ways that where people are going to want to escape, and this is troublesome with the politics that we're seeing, is that people are going to are more nostalgic, and
Well, and
so
it
there's, go ahead.
it's troublesome. There is potential, right? I reconnected with a friend yesterday and I was like, do you want to try to be friends again? And I know there's a lot of philosophy around that. Don't go back or whatever. But to me, the connections I have are really valuable. And they just wrote back, what happened? What happened? And as calmly as I could, I wrote back, this happened, this happened, this happened. Because to me, the most frustrating thing is somebody being like, la di da. I was hoping that this absence would make you forget about our disagreements and that we would be able to go back in a pretend fashion. And I can't do that. So I appreciated that person asking. No idea of what it will come up with, but to me, if somebody's returning, you can do a double check. If it's Uranus, they're going to disappear again, right? If it's a Saturn person, what's your Saturn vibe right now? Maybe you don't need somebody to kind of guide or know the answers, and so on and so forth. But I do think you're right. I think there's a lot of like, I wanted to say before, disillusion is such a great word because you're kidding yourself versus illusion, where you're presented with something that doesn't look like it is. And I think there's a lot of like disillusionment going on with people when they touch back into that nostalgia and it doesn't feel the same. And that is another part of that digestion of emotions so that you get beyond that and get to enjoy your life. Emotions, we were never meant to like hold on to them and give them little homes. We're supposed to eat and let go.
That's exactly right. So what would you, as we're coming to the end of our segment
Yeah,
to talk about the full moon, I'm thinking of, like, I love that you're burning things. It's such a beautiful, like, to me, that's a testament to Saturn and Aries right now, because Saturn
right.
really, Saturn wants us to pare down and get rid of things and become
Yeah,
more streamlined in our material world, right? It wants
yeah.
things to be more efficient, especially in Aries. It's going to want things to be
Hmm.
more efficient. And so, yeah, getting rid of stuff by fire safely,
Yeah,
please don't endanger yourself or others. But yeah, that's a beautiful, or even, the act of clearing with smoke is beautiful. If it's smoke
yes,
that's indigenous to your area, even better.
right, right.
And so, doing the kind of clearing that is somehow wrapped up in fire is going to be really helpful. Um, And also revisiting your boundaries, your social boundaries with people. And also I'm going to say your boundaries with information, because if
Ooh, good
you
one.
are like, I think this is a really great time to take a good look at the information that you are taking in
Yes.
and how it's affecting you, and maybe
Yes.
adjusting what you put into your brain,
Yes.
um, and grounding. Those are my 3 tips for this full
I
moon.
love that. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I have unsubscribed to a lot of newsletters and all of the political texts that come in that are like, it's a disaster. I'm like, stop. And then you ask me for money? Fuck off. What are you doing? Um, so I've turned all of those off. I agree. Like, find a thing that exists in your body that is not a distraction. You don't have to do it for more than a second, but revisit it and see if you can cultivate it. I liked what you said about cleaning with fire. We had a broken bed, so I had to, well, we got to put a new frame together. And of course, under a bed that's been around for a while, there's stuff, right? And so I got to shampoo the rug and vacuum the rug. And I was thinking with air too. And since I feel as though words are not a surefire a way to communicate. Maybe it's cleaning with air or just noticing when you're switching from one element to another and seeing if you can do more fire and air in those elements. I love that. And then, yeah, be fucking grateful. I'm not saying people can't have real issues. I've seen it, blows my mind. I feel for that. But if you can find the perfume of gratitude and cultivate that, you'll get to stay alive with joy. Or joy? With joy. Nope, I'm not going to make that happen. With
What,
joy.
what was the other part of that? Joy and what were
With
you
old,
trying?
with old joy, I think I said. With old joy.
Your meaning was conveyed.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
This was
All right.
great. I'm really excited. I really love following these, and I can't wait to have more guests. This is just such a fun
Yeah,
project
we've
for
got some good
us.
ones coming up. We're going to talk to Alex
Amazing.
Trenowith about her book, and we're going to talk to Louise Eddington about her book. And then we get
Mhm.
Alicia from Australia, Alicia Yusuf, to come and talk to us about a topic that you're really excited about. And I want to hear what you both have to say about the, I'm not going to spill it, but
No, don't
and
spill it. Laura
it's
Tad, I
exciting.
spoke to the other day, and there's a list of people who I've got in line. Laura does a beautiful retreat in Nicaragua each year, so we're trying to figure out the perfect time to let folks know. It might be a great Christmas present for yourself. And yeah, we may be
Nice.
talking to her from Nicaragua if we pick the right time. So I'll follow up with her. But there's a lot of other folks we want you guys to hear from. And then, of course, we're really excited to continue to share what we know.
Absolutely. Yes, this is the funnest project I've done in a long time, my friend.
Same.
And shameless plug, if you want to keep up on the transits, I do a newsletter that's
A
free
really
that
good one.
that
Yeah,
does the transits. So I'll plop the sign up form in the
please.
description when this goes out. All right.
Yay,
Well,
thank
full
you.
moon, my friend. Happy full moon,
Happy full
everybody.
moon.
And we'll
Yeah.
see you next week.
All right. Bye bye.